let's talk now about the process of planning and preparation. Such an important part of being a catechist. In fact, when I was a college student learning how to become a professional teacher, I was taught that planning and preparation make up 70% of the total act of teaching a lesson. So most of what's going to make our lesson effective is what we do before we even get into that classroom. So let's take a very serious look at what planning is all about. The first thing that I would recommend is whatever textbook you're using to sit down and to go through it thoroughly. You don't have to read every word of it, but get a good idea of what your students are going to be working with and its philosophy and its voice and its level of difficulty as well, because then when you get to know the kids, you'll know what they can handle and what they can't. But as well, your catechist manual is another very important thing. A lot of catechists will think of it as their best friend, except for me, being the catechist's best friend. So besides me, I think this catechist manual is where you're going to find so much help for finding the lesson laid out, kind of like a blueprint and a step-by-step instructions. And the more you can familiarize yourself with your catechist manual, the more you're going to be relaxed and able to be a little bit more spontaneous, as well as to find activities that will take you off the page of the textbook, so to speak, and bring those lessons to life. And I think one of the biggest problems that most catechists run into is that they simply try to do too much. I fall into this a lot of times myself. And what we really need to focus on is just, what is the one big idea that we're teaching. Instead of trying to think we're going to teach the entire catechism of the Catholic Church in 1 hour, focus on the one big idea for that night. And this is the kind of thing you're going to want the kids when their parents pick them up and say, oh, so, what did you learn in religion class? Instead of having them say, I don't know, that they're going to come with a response and say, well, we learned about X, Y, Z, whatever that big idea is, that they're just able to at least repeat that. And so I think that's an important thing that we need to come at from lots of different angles and kind of hammer that home so everyone knows when they leave that classroom what they have learned that evening and they can summarize it. Speaking of that big idea, I think that as you look in your catechist manual, you're going to find a page like this. This is from the Finding God Catechist Manual, but every publisher has a page similar to this in which it describes the lesson that you're about to teach. And here's the big idea. I just circled up at the top for this lesson. It's saying God creates the world, and the theme, God's love for us is seen in His creation. See how short and sweet that is? That's the idea you want, that when the kids get picked up and they're asked, what did I learn? What did you learn in class? They'll be able to say, oh, let's see, we learned about creation. That would be wonderful if kids could say that much to their parents about learning about God's creation. The other thing that you find is how that big idea is then fleshed out in the steps of a lesson. And you see there I just highlighted 4 steps that take place in the Finding God program, and most publishers follow either a 3-step or a 4-step process. Here we see engage, explore, reflect, and respond, and each of those is taking the big idea and approaching it in a different way. But the key is to keep it simple, keep it moving, and keep hammering home that main idea. Now, just a reminder, in a few minutes, we're going to be pausing to take some questions. So you can send those in, and I've seen up on the screen here some questions are being sent in, and Nick is compiling some of those right now. But let's turn to some centuries-old advice about this catechetical process. St. Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, taught his followers that when you're teaching, you need to enter through their door, but to be sure to leave through your door. Sorry that my screen, I put the picture right over the words there. I apologize for that. So the saying, once again, is when teaching others, enter through their door, but be sure to leave through your door. And what St. Ignatius is telling us is that we need to engage them where they are at. We need to enter into their world. and find out what it's like to be them and find out issues that are happening in their world that we can connect to as a hook, and then be able to lead them to the door that leads to Christ, that's going to show them how the gospel speaks to their everyday experience. And so I was doing a little bit of thinking about junior high and high school kids, and I came up with a few suggestions for what we would find if we walked through their doorway, and I'm going to share some with you, and then Nick is going to ask you to send in some of your own thoughts. But here's what I came up with. We're going to find an interest in the books and movies called Twilight. We're going to find, especially the boys, being fascinated with graphic novels. We're going to find a fascination with body piercings and tattoos. Kids this age are very much into music. In fact, surveys show that kids this age listen to between 3 and 3.5 hours of music every day. Hopefully not all Lady Gaga, but you know, that's just one of the examples. Music is a big part of their lives, so they all have their MP3 players, and you're going to have to watch for earbuds being snuck into their ears while you're trying to teach. Believe me, it happens all the time. They're also into texting. That's another thing. I've had kids trying to text while I'm leading guided reflections in the classroom. So any chance they get to pull out their little gizmos, that's going to happen. So what else is what I'd like to ask you? You know these kids. You have some of them in your own home. You have nieces and nephews, neighbors, or maybe you're already a catechist of these kind of kids. So Nick, why don't you invite people to send in some of their own thoughts about what is going on in these kids' lives.
All right, thank you, Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we will be using the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen to enter your thoughts on what these age groups are interested in. Again, just go ahead, type it in there. We know it says questions at the top of that screen, but go ahead, enter your free response, and we'll be sharing some of those with the group in just a moment.
Okay, good. So we have a number of responses coming in. I'll give Nick just another moment or two to collect a few more. In the meantime, I just want to remind you that we will also be pausing for questions in, maybe about 5, 7, 8 minutes, and we'll take a few there. And then we will also deal with questions that don't get answered today on my blog within the next week or two. Okay, Nick, you see some good responses coming in. Why don't you share the cream of the crop with us?
All right, Joe. We got a lot of responses, but we've had a few that stand out. We've had TV, cell phones, vampires, Facebook. We have the internet, video games, sports, anything related to competition. Cell phones have come up a lot of times. Fashion, makeup, vampires, the Jersey Shore, socializing, social networking, Facebook, anything internet. A lot of good responses.
Excellent, yeah, and I see over and over again sports coming up. The nice thing nowadays is that sports is attractive to boys and girls. Years ago, I was told that whenever I did my sports analogies that I was only speaking to the boys, but that's not true anymore. The girls are very much in tune with the sports world, and so sports analogies really work well